Now at 7, it's been a very busy and impactful legislative session in Tallahassee. We've reported some really high-profile issues like the final approval of smokable medical marijuana and the program that would allow school districts to arm teachers if they wish. But there are a lot of other major decisions that have been made in Tallahassee, many in a flurry of activity over the last few days.
And that's why we have CBS 4's Jim DeFede here to break them all down, some of the big votes. So, Jim, how about we start with healthcare?
Healthcare, a lot of took place. There's a lot to get to, so I'm just going to get right into it. So we've been watching a lot. If you've watched any TV at all in the last couple of weeks, you saw those commercials that were worrying people about and saying, please write your senators and tell them not to pass a drug prescription bill that would have drugs imported from Canada. Well, the legislature passed the bill and it's on its way to the governor, and you can expect to sign it. Now, this would allow Florida to import drugs from Canada if the federal government allows it. So that's one area, that healthcare, that was taken on. Another big area that came up in healthcare was cosmetic surgery centers. People love to come to Florida to get cosmetic surgery, but some of those centers are better than others. And there was a great investigation done by USA Today that found that in one particular case, there was a doctor who kept getting cited, closing his clinic, reopening under another name, and a series of women died in those clinics. The legislature now passed, Senator Anna Terry Flores from South Florida passed a measure that's on its way to the governor that he'll likely sign that says that if your cosmetic surgery center has been shut down, you can't reopen under another name for 5 years. One other quick thing I just want to say on healthcare. The Florida legislature passed a measure that says that if Obamacare is struck down, that insurance companies in Florida still have to insure people with pre-existing conditions. You can expect to hear Republicans really mount a big campaign saying, we've protected pre-existing conditions. The problem is in the fine print, the bill does not require the insurance companies to insure those folks at the same rate. So even though you can be covered for pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies can jack up your rates to extraordinary measures, which eventually is going to mean you won't have any insurance.
Jim, what about the amendment that voters passed allowing felons who've served their time to vote? That was a loss for the Democrats in the session, right?
This was another major issue. As you remember, Amendment 4 passed with, I think, 65% of the vote, which was going to allow convicted felons who have completed their sentences to be able to automatically register to vote. Florida was one of the only states that goes back to a 150-year-old racist piece of legislation that barred basically all felons and was really designed to attack African Americans to being able to vote. Well, the measure passed through popular referendum, but the legislature started putting restrictions on it, and as a result, tens of thousands of people who would normally have their rights restored are not going to have their rights restored until they make all financial restitution. Now, that may sound like an easy thing, that if you had court costs and fees, you still have to pay those before you get out. Well, the problem is you're going to have different judges across the state having different levels of how they're going to enforce this. So you're going to have a hodgepodge of a system across the state of Florida, and that worries advocates.
Okay, so let's move on down the line and let's talk about Florida's education system. How many more people are now going to be eligible for vouchers?
This was a huge win for Republicans and in particular for Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush back in the 90s tried to pass a voucher program. In fact, he did pass a massive voucher program that was struck down by the Florida Supreme Court. Well, this time around, the Florida House and Senate passed a voucher bill that will allow 18,000 new vouchers called Family Empowerment Scholarships. It'll cost the state about $130 million, and that money will come out of the public school system to be able to have poorer kids take that money and go to private school. Now, taxpayers in school districts are worried that the result is going to be that you're going to see a loss of the public school system. The school superintendents are opposed to it, school boards are opposed to it, but it's one of those things that Republicans have been trying to pass for years. As you saw in that tweet before, Jeb Bush was actually there. They highlighted him, they congratulated him. The question is going to be, what will happen when it gets to the state Supreme Court? Now, when Jeb Bush passed it back in the 90s, the state Supreme Court struck it down and said you could not do this. This was putting private money into public schools, or the public money into private schools, particularly religious institutions. But things have changed. Ron DeSantis, after being elected, appointed 3 conservative judges to the Florida Supreme Court. The court then moved from a liberal court to a conservative court, and so everyone is going to wait and see, will the conservative court allow this to go through?
Yeah, it was a big change. Talk about the good news for firefighters from Tallahassee.
You know, this was an interesting moment. Now, the firefighters, there was a cancer bill that was working its way through the system that was stopped cold by Florida House Speaker Jose Oliva. This was one of those things that really surprised a lot of people. And Jose Oliva claimed that he didn't think it was right for the state to impose something on cities and counties. Well, there was also a lot of talk that it was political retribution against the firefighters union because they had backed certain Democrats against Republican candidates that were close to Oliva and his allies. Well, there was a public outrage. I did a program on it on Facing South Florida. There was a lot of stories written, and the public pressure forced the speaker to back down, allowed it to be voted on. It passed unanimously in the House, unanimously in the Senate, and Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill this afternoon, which will allow for firefighters who contract 21 different types of cancer that are believed to be job-related, specific to their job as firefighters, to be able to now receive some additional financial benefit, about $25,000 per firefighter, to handle out-of-pocket expenses and other types of expenses. It's not a lot of money, but it helps the firefighters, and I think that's a good way to sort of end the week.
Great news for those firefighters.
Yeah,
good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. And Jim will talk a lot more about all of the activity in Tallahassee this Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on Facing South Florida. That's right here on CBS 4.